equips, and empowers you to have uncomfortable conversations on hot topics with people who don't share your same beliefs. Your host, Sabrina Protic, Ricky Burney, and Joel Holt. Now let's get ready to have that conversation. Uncomfortable Conversations is powered by the Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership for mentorship on Facebook.
Good morning, Ricky. How are you this morning?
I am doing amazing. So glad that it's Wednesday finally. How about you?
Yes, hump day. We want to welcome you, Ricky, and all of our guests to Uncomfortable Conversation this morning. My name is Sabrina Protic. I'm an author, life coach, and financial coach. The name of my book is Growing Ageless, Think Young and Live Younger. And my counterpart here, Ricky, he is also an author of the book, Destined for Greatness. You are a success coach also, Ricky, and author of the book, Destined for Greatness, 90 Days of Transformational Affirmation, right here out of Tampa Bay with me, myself. So we may be joined by a few other people today, but right now, Ricky, you and I got this. So tell me, Ricky, did you have any uncomfortable conversations this weekend?
I did not have any uncomfortable conversations this weekend, but I am going to have a very uncomfortable conversation tomorrow. I will be part of a discussion about Black males and the health disparities that exist right now. So it's going to be a very uncomfortable but very critical conversation that needs to be had in society right now.
Okay. Well, I had an uncomfortable conversation. And of course, it was more on a personal level, but during, participating in this show really helped me handle that conversation. So my husband and I had kind of a disagreement. I was on my treadmill, just riding away. And he comes in and makes a statement that I didn't agree with. Normally I would say, let me get off this treadmill. But you know what I did? I said, Sabrina, think about the principles that you've learned in uncomfortable conversation. I had another 40 minutes to go. I says, I'm going to take my 40 minutes. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to think so that I give him the dignity and the honor of his opinion. So that when I go to him and talk to him about it, it's out of respect and be willing to listen to his perspective and viewpoint. And so the outcome was totally different. I said, I graduated. So what happened when I went out to have that conversation after I did my hour on the treadmill? I said, now, so what is it that you wanted to talk to me about? And by then, he had also come down emotionally as well. And I said, please share with me and show me what you're talking about. So my approach was totally different and the outcome was beautiful. So different. I can definitely see how Prince and Ricky, I'm sure you've had these conversations. You almost don't want to go there because I was thinking on my treadmill, I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to have it because I could already see where it's going to go based on the old way. Old way I would handle it. So let's think about that in terms of this show. Each week, our mission is to empower our viewers to have these uncomfortable conversations on personal and social issues, right? And all too often we got our ideas and our perspectives clear in our mind, but we want to take a step back and prepare ourselves to have these uncomfortable conversations where somebody may not share our viewpoint. These are conversations that we often put off. We don't want to have it. And the reason we put it off is because we're going to try to hijack the conversation. That's why we put it off, because we're so focused on our perspectives. But if we really sit back, right, punt a little bit, Ricky, and think about how we're going to have that conversation and give that person dignity and respect and really listen to their perspectives, then that actually deepens the relationship, whether it's a coworker or a mate or a friend. You come out of that conversation with actually enlightenment, because you listen to somebody else and respect them, and they should respect you. So,
Yeah,
Ricky, what do you think about that?
Yeah, not to mention also sometimes if we go into that conversation, we sometimes go with the assumption of how that person is going to feel about our perspective. So we don't even give them the opportunity to be able to receive it because we come in on the defense because we think that they're not going to be able to hear what we have to say. So I believe that the way to really approach it is to not assume what the other person is going to believe. Go in, have your perspective, be ready to receive their perspective, and just be able to collaborate because that's what it's about. A conversation is an exchange. If you're not ready to have that exchange, maybe you need to take a few minutes to calm your emotions, to calm your preconceived notions, and then take another step forward to have that conversation.
Oh, I mean, that's so on point. The key here is respect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key word, is respect.
Yes, it
and
is.
allowing differences of opinion and perspective, because at the end of the day, that's what they are. You know, some people start out a conversation with, well, I got the facts. That can raise the hairs up on the back of your neck. Right? Those could be words. I got the facts. And, you know, your words are opinion and mine are facts. Well, but it doesn't matter. It's a perspective. We keep that in mind. Perspective. So I think we may have one of our co-hosts, Joel Holtz, who showed up, and we'll be hearing from him during the show. But right now, Ricky, I think we have one of our guests that you may want to introduce.
Absolutely. So our distinguished guest today is none other than Gary Rogers. He is a retired Canadian Football League player, and he is going to share his perspective and his insight on this very critical topic that we have today. And Sabrina, can you tell the audience a little bit about what our topic will be today?
Sure. We're going to have an uncomfortable conversation today based on a magazine article. And it was entitled, "Why Are Black Males Supported Only When They're Athletes?" This question, Ricky, was raised in the Perspective magazine dated August 2019 by Joseph N. Cooper. Joseph, through this article, asked his readers to name 10 Black men who are athletes. That was easy to do. Now he said, name 10 who are not athletes or entertainers. This statement gives us reason for pause, not because it's true, but that Joseph's perspectives kind of ties in a little bit with our question today. And that is our mission of uncomfortable conversation, to ask questions like this and to learn and share differences in perspectives. So I'd like to, so in this magazine article, so I'm going to be reading some excerpts from this magazine article. Joseph stated, so you may ask, what inspired Joseph to have this perspective, and does it have validity? We're going to examine Joseph's perspectives with our guest with the goal of having an uncomfortable conversation with a diverse group of individuals and illustrating the value of listening to learn differences of perspectives with people. When we come back, Ricky, from our sponsor break, we'll begin our conversation from this magazine article written by Joseph N. Cooper and his question on Black men and athletics.
Uncomfortable Conversations Talk Radio is sponsored by the Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership for mentorship. You can follow all our hosts on Facebook. Search Trendsetter Mentor Group and join. Now back to the show.
In Hartford, the Huskies lead the Cornhuskers 40-24. And now I'm welcomed by Dr. Joseph Cooper. He's an assistant professor at UConn's MEAG School of Education, and your work is so interesting. What it's about is the way that schools can make sure student athletes have a more well-rounded experience, because often their sport becomes their identity, right?
Absolutely.
What's the best way that a college can give them that well-rounded experience?
Absolutely. It's just making sure that they're involved in extracurricular activities outside of athletics, as well as engaging them in the classroom. They have a host of experiences and skills that they acquire and develop through athletics, and it's taking the classroom space and other spaces outside the classroom at the university and honing in on those skills.
Dr. Cooper, you were a student athlete, and how did that experience contribute to your research?
Absolutely. Being an athlete, it was a big part of my identity, and I knew once my athletic career ended that the only reason I was able to make a smooth transition into life after athletics because I had a positive support system. I had individuals in my life who told me there are a lot of skills that you acquired in athletics that are transferable to career readiness after athletics is over. No, that's all.
Well, it's like that commercial, not everybody gets to go pro in their sport. So, all right, so you've been watching this UConn game. Assess how the women's basketball program does sending players off into the world.
Absolutely. Well, what Gino and his staff have done is create a culture of excellence, not only on the court, but also off the court. So the women's basketball program here consistently has among the highest graduation rates, highest grade point averages, and they also consistently are involved in the community. And so that's something that builds these young women up as leaders, not only on the court, but off the court as well.
Dr. Cooper, thank you so much for your expertise. I see you're doing just well after your student athlete career. All right.
Welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversation Morning Show. So we're going to be unpacking this topic written by Joseph Cooper, which you just saw him. Like many boys growing up in North Carolina, Joseph Cooper set his sights on playing basketball for the Tar Heels. Yes, the Greenboro native, New Carolina was one of the best universities in the country with a top-ranked business school, his fallback career at the time. But his heart was less on academics than enrolling at the school that graduated the likes of George Lynch in 1993, Eric Montrose in 1994, and yes, Michael Jordan in the 86. So a good player growing up, Joseph made UNC's junior varsity team as a freshman. But as he saw his chances of making varsity fade, he felt lost and began to question who he was. Out of that identity crisis came a career. Joseph went on to earn a master's degree in exercise and sports science from UNC in 2009 and a doctorate from the University of Georgia, conducting research into the holistic development of Black male athletics. Now an assistant professor in the University of Connecticut's Department of Educational Leadership and Sports Management. He has founded and runs Collective Uplift, an organization to maximize the potential of young men of color beyond athletics. He went on to state, I wanted to prevent that identity crisis that happened to me from happening to others, he said. Black men constitutes the majority of the athletics on collegiate football and basketball teams. He said that Black men, even though the majority of them are athletics and collegiate football, that their graduation rate is among the lowest demographically speaking. Joseph had difficulty transitioning out of athletics and realized that even the varsity players risk an identity crisis when they stop playing professional sports. Perhaps even more intense because they had been used to the hoopla of playing on national television. Sports will not last forever, he said. So we're going to be reading portions of this article and share our guest perspectives on this topic. And Ricky, you want to weigh in a little bit on this?
Sure. And while we do that, can we bring in our distinguished guests and our other co-hosts at this time? Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome.
Morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Great. So here's another part of this article, and I'm going to have you all weigh in on this directly after. So Americans do not think of sports as races. We believe playing enhances character development, social skills, and physical prowess, all across social groups. It is practically a prerequisite for being a productive citizen in society, particularly for males. But in the Black community, playing sports has always offered something greater. In pre-civil rights America, the playing field was the one place that allowed blacks, especially black males, to be free, at least briefly, from the oppression of their daily lives. Now it is seen as their path to the American dream. Sports are among the few spaces in our society where black males receive adoration and support, as opposed to stigma and exclusion. And I'm going to start off with Gary. Do you feel that sports are among the few spaces in our society where black males receive adoration and support?
So, thanks for having me this morning, everybody. It's great to be a part of this uncomfortable conversations, and this is slightly uncomfortable because I'm white. You know? No, actually, I'm not even uncomfortable with that because I played sports most of my life, and there was less white people than there were my black friends, my black athletes. But I kind of get some of the stuff now. I can't give you a perspective because I'm a white guy. I can't give you like, hey, growing up, blah blah blah. But I'll do the best I can, Ricky. So your question is, what you're asking is, and you know what, Sabrina, like last week, you know how this goes. I got a bunch of notes and I'm like, I got to write all this stuff. I can't write these questions down. Ricky, that was complicated right there. Hey, break that down again. Ask me that one more time, Ricky.
Absolutely. So do you feel that sports are among the few spaces in our society where black males receive adoration and support? Do you feel that black male success and respect are confined to the areas of being in the sports industry?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big one right there. I mean, so sports is for just look. I started taking notes. I started writing down all my friends from Vanderbilt when I went to college, and then also after Vanderbilt, some of these other places, and I just started like thinking about all their past and different things. But man, I'm getting chills thinking about this right now. I got some exciting stuff because, first of all, sports does allow the black community, some of these male athletes, to get the opportunity to go to college where, I know where they're coming from because I'm friends with them. I know there's not a lot of money. I know they've grown up with, single parents in the home or growing up with their grandparents. I've grown up with some of these athletes who, were amazing athletes who their son is now playing in the NFL, but they themselves ended up going to prison because they were making the bad choice. And that prison route, he didn't go to college. He wasn't able to do all that. And let me tell you, this guy, he was an amazing athlete. But because he didn't play sports, he didn't get all that notoriety, yet his son today is making millions of dollars. So that's just an example of a friend I grew up with in Cincinnati. He went one direction, but his son had the opportunity to play in college for Ohio State and now playing the NFL. But yeah, absolutely. I think sports is, the black community, the black males are lifted up or put on this pedestal. They get in the door. It's their opportunity to, by the way, if I'm doing this a lot, sorry, it's just that they're coming out. So excuse me for doing that. But yeah, I see it. I think that's true. I got some more to say about all these athletes I wrote down, but I'm going to save that, Ricky.
Okay. Joel, can you weigh in a little bit on this from your perspective? Do you feel that black males only receive support within the sports industry?
First of all, good morning, everybody. Good to see you, Gary.
Morning.
In my opinion, honestly, man, I think they receive adoration. I think they get conditional support. I think they're a guest invited to a society that as long as they play ball or do what they're supposed to do, then they can get the conditional support. The minute that they don't do what they're supposed to do, they will cut you. Like you're set up to win, you're set up to fail, makes me think of the recent Tiger Woods, documentary that I just saw that came out a few weeks ago. And it's like the man achieved the highest of the highs. And it was any reason he gave them to kind of like slip, it's like he's out there. Because if the white counterpart did some of the stuff that he did, it would probably be brushed underneath. But he was supposedly exalted to a higher place. But when I look at all this type of stuff, you're in a system that benefits other people, and and it's a setup sometimes. So if you don't go along, you will, they'll pull the rug from underneath you.
Wow.
Absolutely. Now, Gary, let me ask you this question. Do you feel that, coming from the perspective of a former basketball player, do you feel that coaches and other people around them, do you feel it as if they push them to do things outside of the sports to maybe further their success, whether going into entrepreneurship, ownership? Do you feel that the coaches and other people around them, do you feel as if they push Black players to do things outside of that and to diversify their endeavors?
Yeah, thank you, Ricky. And by the way, I was a basketball player for just until high school, but I loved all sports. My main sport was football, though, Ricky. But you know what? Thanks for bringing up basketball. I love basketball. I thought you said I was a basketball player, which I was. But hey, let me tell you this. So I've got all these names I started writing down, and I don't even want to bust them out, but I'm going to share a few of them. And these are guys I went to college with. I went to Vanderbilt University. Shelton Quarles, Rod Keith, Alan Young, Donald Petrie, Louis Woolridge, Robert Davis, Marcus Wilson, Will Pryor. I'm getting chills, by the way. I don't know why I'm getting chills, but I'm excited. These are my friends, and these are successful Black athletes. Will Pryor, Joe Peebles, James West, Corey Harris, Paul Morgan, Jamie Wimborne, Tony Jackson, Dr. Derek Gregg. You guys got to get him on this show. I mean, that's the one you're looking for. You need to talk to that guy. Senior VP of Inclusion, Education, and Community Engagement at the NCAA. And he's the one in charge. This is the guy that you need instead of me. But I've got, and you know what? These guys, Tampa Bay Bucks, now is working for the Bucks. Engineer, another engineer, entrepreneur, salesperson, successful salesperson, technology, insurance agent, attorney, judge, engineer again, entrepreneur. I mean, like this list, these guys are all successful. I mean, like as far as the outside, looking from the outside in, you'd say, hey, Alan Young, man, you created this thing to help people not be able to break in doors. And man, this place is all over and Home Depot and Lowe's. I mean, this is like a guy who's smart, engineer. But I'll tell you what, my school, Vanderbilt, I need to send this to the coach, to the new coach, this podcast, because, what Vanderbilt has done is, and you're asking if they're pushing the Black athletes to be doing other things. Well, I don't know exactly if they were doing that because I wasn't one of those Black athletes, but I was with them and they were treated the same way I was treated. If I couldn't miss class and then they could miss class, it was the level playing field, man. I mean, white guy couldn't miss class, Black guy couldn't miss class. A white guy's grades have to be up to this standard. A Black guy's grades need to be up to the standard. I mean, we're all on the same page, And I didn't necessarily see my school pushing people necessarily, the black people, white people, whatever, into being a part of the community. I think everything, we were just all kind of a part of it. And just, I think that Vanderbilt in general, they had some, you had to get these grades. You had to do this, you had to do that. Your head coach, he's the one that's encouraging, hey, we're all, as a team, we're getting together and we're going to have we're signing autographs, or we're going to do this, or you're going to dress up. Everybody's going to dress the same and you're going to look the same. And there's going to be they're creating this culture, between your coaches, head coach, and Vanderbilt, they're creating this culture that's putting people in a spot to be successful. And I don't necessarily think it was separated. Different people were treated different way. The only thing I would say is, yeah, people were slightly treated different. It was only because of maybe you're as a player, as an athlete, if you're sitting the bench, I don't care if you're white or Black. I mean, maybe the coach didn't talk to you as much. Okay, that's just like that. everywhere at all levels. It didn't matter about your skin color. But you know what? At my school, there's so many successful black athletes that I mean, if I went and I got a lot of these names, Sabrina and Ricky and Joel from my website, you know, who I've interviewed a lot of these guys and they've shared their story. And I not only know them, you know, personally from, you know, my experiences at Vanderbilt, but they've shared some stuff and I know where they're at today. And man, a lot of successful people. Now, I'm not saying the college, Vanderbilt has got them in the door. And I'm not saying all colleges are all the same, but I do believe that a college experience for the black community is probably the biggest way for a black man, black young adult to get in the door, especially if they've grown up in this situation where you know, they didn't have parents that went to college, or, you know, the whole work and employment and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
All right. I would like to pass it over to Sabrina. Did you want to weigh in on any of this?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of impressed that Gary Rogers, retired NFL player, was able to come up with all those names just at the moment's notice at this show, because he really didn't know. Just in case you didn't know, Gary didn't know about this topic until about 15 minutes ago. So he has a website called Check Your Game. That's checkyourgame.com. If you want to find out about these athletes, go visit his website. That's one of the things that bound us together. It's because of Gary's perspectives and his openness about people. And he just really kind of nailed that. So on the level of uncomfortable conversation, this could be a little bit uncomfortable, but right away he went to work in his mind, like I said earlier, to try to find a common ground and to show the respect. And one thing I noticed when you were listing those people, they had other things attached to their name. Not only were they the athlete, but they had become the doctor or the insurance agent or whatever. So you kind of bridged this a little bit, for us. And I just want to kind of weigh in on that I think that that's great that you were able to go to work to deal with this uncomfortable conversation. So thank you on that. Back to you, Ricky.
Thank you.
Okay, and next I want to pass this over to our co-host. Before I do that, I want to give him this formal introduction. Joel Holt is our creative marketing director for the Thriving Women Network. If you know anything about that, there's a show that comes on Tuesdays at 12 o'clock. And then we have Uncomfortable Conversations on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. And this is our creative director. So welcome to the show. Did you have something you wanted to share from the same article?
Here's another excerpt from the article. It says, but the whites who control mainstream sports have long exploited black athletes economically, psychologically, politically, and for entertainment. Playing amateur athletic union basketball, or AAU, was a big part of my development and personal identity as a black male growing up in the 1990s. Later, I understood the racism embedded in this experience. I had teammates who were struggling academically, but were still allowed to travel across the country to compete, revealing that for black males, athletic performance was valued more than their educational development. I noticed how a majority of the players were black, while the coaches, organizers, and sponsors were white. Those groups got the real benefits. We players were all sold the same dream. We could get college scholarships, maybe even play professionally. Most of us didn't either. So I guess the question is, do you feel that mainstream sports have exploited black athletes economically, psychologically, politically, and for entertainment? Guys, what do you guys weigh in on that?
If no one wants to say anything, Joel, can I respond to that?
Go ahead, man.
All right, so I'm taking some more notes, man, and I'm getting excited about this. This is some exciting stuff. I mean, it really is. And I've got 2 names, man.
We lose you? Oh.
Mm-mm.
It's getting to him.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
It's okay.
How?
Man. All right, so there's these 2 friends of mine who I got to know, and Alex and Yusuf. They played. One is from Africa. Yusuf's from Africa, 6'11". You know, real tall, skinny guy, loves basketball. Alex from France, about 6'6". You know, a little bit thicker. You know, they both got recruited to play high school basketball over in Utah somewhere. Wasawatch or something academy, some kind of academy. And you know what? This academy, they won. They won all like state tournaments or whatever. They're amazing, right? And by the way, both these guys are black, right? So I'm just kind of, you know, that's why I'm bringing them up. But they won. You know, they won all, you know, every year, and that's why they got recruited to play there, because they were great athletes. But as soon as they finished high school, they were finished. They didn't have any money. They didn't have any family. They had no family here. They're in the United States. They're broke. They've had a high school degree. And it's like, what's next? And obviously they didn't get help with college. But let me tell you, there's a guy, good friend of mine, Billy Sutherland, who's in Cincinnati, who I used to work for, Christian man, basketball player at UC, white guy, owns a business. He caught wind of one of these guys needing help. And you know what he did? He said, come on over here. I'm going to take care of your room and board. I'm going to take, and then he met Yusuf first, then he met Alex, took care of their room and board. I remember going over with his wife, Suzanne. We'd go bring over groceries because, you know, they had nothing. Suzanne would come out to the car and I'd say, hey, what was going on? She said they had water in the fridge. That's it. Had no money. So took care of them. Got him into Cincinnati State to start basketball. Finished those couple years. Then to get their grades back up. Supported them. Paid for them to go to Worcester. Alex went to Worcester. And Yusuf went to Tusculum. Yusuf had a heart problem. He had to go to Cleveland Clinic. Was it paid for by? He didn't have any money. Paid for by Billy Sutherland and everything. Alex paid for. Both these guys were paid for. Now let me tell you, they finished. You know, there's more to the story, but the reason why I guess I was getting emotional is that, well, Yusuf, he passed. You know, Yusuf, October 15th, almost a year and a half ago, he passed from. He had that heart problem. Ended up getting cancer. And you know what? I'm excited. Sabrina, Ricky, Joel. He shared a story on Check Your Game. I'm so thankful that I could get his story. He loved basketball, loved life, loved people, and he loved sports. And he wasn't able to play since his heart problem, you know. And when he went to Worcester, when he went to Tusculum, but I got to know him pretty good, and people loved him. And but you know what? That's just an example of two guys that I know pretty well. I know their story from the beginning until Yusuf's end, and Alex now is back in France. But that's what happened to them. These are two, African American athletes that somebody recruited just to win. And I always said this a long time ago, man. They just dumped them, kicked them to the curb once they were finished with high school. Now I know there was a family. There's probably some people that I may not know about that might have done some things for him, but for the most part, that coach kicked him to the curb. And by the way, that coach that was head coach, he died too. I don't understand. I don't know a lot about him, but I know he didn't help him after high school.
Oof.
Well, you know, when you say the question is like, is the mainstream sports exploited black athletes economically, psychologically, politically, and for entertainment? Yes. It's like, you know, I mean, I feel that, you know, I think as a fan from the outside, I played some sports, but I wasn't on the level of, I was nice at 22. Okay. I was real nice. But in terms of just on the side, when you look at it as a fan and look at the history of things, it's like, I think they didn't realize that the power of being able to market and just to make money. You know, so and then the greed comes in about how do we market and sell these arenas and sell the seasons. I mean, like when you look at, say, like Michael Jordan, for example, he's the reason that the NBA really took off. I mean, it was Bird and Magic doing their thing, but the global aspect. It's like we can make so much more money, and now we can. So then it's like, how do you exploit the athletes from a psychological standpoint, right? You kind of exalt the one person, higher, where he's separated from everybody else. I think of most people, especially in the 60s, 70s, were pretty much segregated, right? Like the black folks were pretty much had to live in certain areas, and they kept everybody in the same environments for the most part. So you were still connected, and they disconnected after a while, because once you get to another level, we're gonna isolate you, and they almost isolated you away, in my opinion, away from everybody else, where you have a disconnect with people. So the psychological part, the political part, it's like you're not connected with the folks to even have that type of connection. So that's how I feel. At least that's one part of it that I see.
Well, I agree with both of you. I think that with athletes, I believe that they don't teach them the importance of creating a legacy for themselves. They don't really teach them the importance of what that word means, what it means to leave something behind, what it means to create an impact in your community, in your family. And I believe that they floss shiny things in their face, especially people who come from underprivileged areas who never had anything. All you have to do is show them a few shiny things, and they'll do whatever they need to do in order to obtain that. But they don't teach them that at some point that's going to go away if you do not put the right things in place to sustain those things. So that's the psychological aspect of it. The political aspect of it, I could see, is that they're taught to not really have a voice outside of playing on the court. They can talk about how they play in the game, but outside of that, they're not supposed to speak about things that affect them and their communities. Look at some of the football players that have tried that and how many times they were demonized for doing that.
Craig Hodges. Craig Hodges is like blacklisted.
Yeah.
He wore what you're wearing to the White House.
That was actually a reason I wore it today, was to show how making a statement at times can cause controversy when all you could be doing is just showing aspects of your culture. And sometimes in sports, I feel that people are taught not to show aspects of their true authenticity. So.
Wow. Well, Ricky, I want to weigh in as the female in this panel. So I'm listening to this, and all of you have got some great perspectives on this uncomfortable conversation. But as I reflect, I listen to what Gary said. These two athletes were recruited for their skill simply to win. They recruited simply to win. They happen to be black. They really could have been any color, but they happen to be black. But I think the travesty of this is these players not being educated as in terms of their future. What happens after the game? What is your future going to look like? And so you may want to pay a little bit more attention academically. You may want to start preparing yourselves for life after the game. And, let's face it, all of us have been on teams before. I've been a captain before. We got to pick your team. You're going to pick the best person. So you want the tallest, the heaviest, the thickest, the most agile. You're looking for the best player. And in some instances, that might be a black male or a black female, depending on what it is. I can't pick for that type of skill. So you're playing to win. I used to play cards, play to win. You're playing to win. So if you're a coach, I could throw down on some cards, play to win. However, there should be some coaching in place. Gary, I don't know if you can sense this, but there should be some coaching in place. Check your game is one of those things, but there should be some coaching in place for these athletes for life after. And understand you may be exploited. I think what we're talking about is exploitation here. You may be exploited for your athleticism, your race perhaps. So, I'm just saying.
I think that there seems to be like an environment where they're kind of doing that better now. But like when you look at like certain documentaries like ESPN Broke, for example, and how a lot of those guys, that first wave of those guys coming into the big money, because the big money didn't come until, recently, even like watching The Last Dance, for example, and how they talk about Scotty and how he had signed that contract. they said that the TV money didn't even come until basically like 2 years later, where now it's starting to really grow, where these salaries have become absorbent. So now it's like, yeah, you still have the psychological aspect of some people not coming from environments and not having the financial acumen. But now that it's been some years down the road, they're starting to do that. But you see a lot of these guys blow right through their money. I know of a guy. I'm not going to say their name, but they were always they were a prominent NFL player, and they like to gamble, and they're at the bank, taking out big withdrawals of money to go and gamble. Sometimes some of these guys end up having these type of aversions that you don't even know, and so instead of putting that money up or whatever, but it's like the mindset is, I got another check coming, and instead of saving and stashing. So I think they're starting to do a little bit better of educating players now, but there's a slew of them that, went down that path where it was like a trap. Here's your money, and then let them be. They didn't teach you how to invest it, how to take care of yourselves moving forward. And I think only because it's been brought out, it's been more of a reactive thing and not proactive approach is why they're doing it now.
Joel, very good comment. That leads into our next bullet on this. So there's a deeply seated pathology that Black males are genetically predisposed to be talented athletes and less gifted in the areas outside of sports and entertainment, which we've kind of been talking about. Now, this is still coming from that article. He says, and this is a quote from him, so as with my AAU teams, it is not uncommon for Blacks to make up the majority of football and men's basketball players at big-time colleges, while being a small fraction of the school's overall student enrollment. At the kindergarten through 12th grade level, Black males are more likely to be celebrated for their athletic prowess and less likely to be selected for gifted and honors classes, let alone be recognized for their performance in classes. So my question is, I want to start with Gary. So Gary, I'll repeat it, but we're talking about academically now compared to their athletic talent.
Yeah.
Do you feel, Gary, that Black males make up the majority of football and men's basketball players at big time colleges, while the small fraction of the school's overall student enrollment are lower in terms of percentage in colleges, academically speaking? So weighing out the academics as opposed to the athletic ability.
Oh, I'm glad we're on uncomfortable conversations, because what's my answer? What's that answer going to be? I don't have any notes on this, Sabrina, but I got some stuff to tell you for sure. What I think, and I am so thankful for this too, by the way, very, very thankful. I'm thankful that it's not Gary's path anymore in life. I am so thankful for that. And I'm thankful because I don't know if this is loud, but I just have to throw this out. And I got this faith in the God of the universe, who created me. And I'm on that path, right? I'm like trying to figure out, hey, how am I going to talk to a person? How am I going to do this? How am I going to go through school? What am I going to do and work? All the things in my life, I'm putting everything in this God of the universe. And you know what? I do know that God He made everybody unique. We're all different. White people, Black people, not just the color of our skin, but our brains, our muscles, this, that, and the other. And I'm confident that God, with his unique, with everybody's unique abilities, he gave people different gifts. He gave certain people a gift to maybe be faster than not. Some people are taller, some people are shorter. Some people, so everybody's got some kind of gift. So without actually, I could stereotype and look at a bunch of people and say, Black people, white people, I see a tall looking Black guy and muscles and whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, I want him on my team. And I can say, yeah, this white fat guy, I'd probably take the Black guy. I understand physically, I can, with sports, how that would work on who would probably be better. But I also know at the same time that, you know what, you just never know. It doesn't matter about the outside. You got to see them on the field, right? But we all have different gifts. And so without just generalizing and say, all black people are the best athletes, but they're not good as CEOs. I mean, do I need to go back to my list of Shelton, who's making multiple hundreds of thousands, Rod Keefe, same way, Alan Young, same way. I would say Donald, Louis, Robert, Marcus, Will, Joe, James, Corey, Paul, Jamie, Dr. Derek Ragg. I mean, they're all making a lot of money. They're CEOs, they're professionals, they're engineers, attorneys, doctors. And you know what? You may tell you about their athletic career. Sheldon Quarles, 10, 11 years for the Bucs. You know, Rod Keefe was from Alabama. Awesome, strong, great all-SEC guy at Vanderbilt. Could have played in the NFL probably, but didn't. Alan Young, fast, strong, big, long arms, great pass rusher, has a bunch of records at Vanderbilt. I believe he had some injuries, some surgeries. I believe he was dabbled in the NFL. Robert Davis played in the CFL with me. Great athlete, fast. Marcus Wilson, man, other than his dance moves, this dude could like break it down, man. He was awesome. He's a quarterback, ran the triple option, man, and those dance moves came into play. He was great. These guys are smart and they're great athletes. They've got both things. So I don't think it's that a black athlete is only has it athletically, because I look at these guys and I think to myself, you know what? They've done more in the business world than I have, and I'm white guy.
So Gary, let me float this back to you, and that's great, the afterlife. But let me float this back to you. During their careers and your experience as an athlete, and you're shoulder to shoulder with these guys. And congratulations on your career, by the way, in the NFL. You have your own accolades, but how often was academics highlighted? I mean, so you got these black athletes on the field, you got white athletes on the field as well, but was academic achievement equally important, for these stellar black players?
Yeah. By the way, I played in the CFL, but that's okay. I just want to make sure people know. Canadian Football League, that's fine. But okay, so here's the deal. If you don't get the grades, you're not playing. So I don't know what to say. I don't care what color you are. You got to get grades in college. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I mean, I think it's probably even, worse now as an athlete in college now. I mean, back when I was playing in 89 to 92 in college, it was still, you can't just get bad grades. You can't skip class. I mean, I know maybe years before there's some different schools, and I'm not saying every school. I know at Vanderbilt, you weren't, academics were important, and the coach tells you go to school. In fact, what they do, you wouldn't know this, but they would send a coach out. I would see coaches out there sometimes just walking the Vanderbilt campus. They would check to see if you're going to school, because if you got a problem, your grades aren't good. They're like, what's the deal? Is he not going to class? Which you could get away with doing. And so coaches would check on you. And so I don't care if you're white, it doesn't matter what color skin. They say you got to get on the field. You got to pass, man. Your academics are important. So at my school, that was an important thing. And I think at a lot of other schools now, I know there's some improvements. And man, I could give I love this conversation. I got all kinds of stuff to say, but I'll stop right there.
Well, thank you. I gotta let. Okay, and then Joel will give it to Ricky when you're done.
Well, the question also still was that do black males make up the majority of football men and the college players, but the small fraction of the school's overall student enrollment, why not the same percentage of the student population? And I feel that the society that's been created for basically the society has been created is that if you have equity in your homes, you have the money typically to go and pay for your kids to go to college. And in certain areas, and certain athletes who don't have that, come from that type of affluence, just can't afford it. So, I think there's a preference. If they could recruit players that were awesome players that came from affluent families, they'd probably rather get those type of players. But if you come from the city, or you come from an area that's not as affluent and you can't afford it, you get the scholarship, but you're basically there. That's why they talk about, a lot of these players get on campus and they can't afford to be there. And then they get in trouble and they get set up for things like that. So I feel like it's that to me is why there's not the same percentage in the student population versus as it is on the teams themselves.
Ricky, you want to
Yeah.
comments on this?
Well, the only comment that I have on it is that I've never been an athlete per se, but I have been in schools that were big on football, and I did notice that it appeared that certain teachers were more lenient with some of the athletes, so they didn't necessarily push them to be the best academically. And I think even though they thought it was beneficial to them, at the end of the day, it was still very detrimental to them in the long run, because sometimes they couldn't read, sometimes they're not great with math, so they couldn't manage their finances, they couldn't read their contracts. And I think that's why some of the things that we see today in which the athletes are going broke, I think that's part of the reason that we see that is because they were not given the proper foundation to be able to manage the resources that they were given. So I do believe that sometimes schools do put a little more emphasis on the sports part. They value those athletes, and then the students, there's not as many students necessarily that are there for academics. So it's just the way of the American society, in my opinion, is that sports are valued more. So that's why you'll see more athletes in there than you would see African-American students or minority students, and just for the academic portion. So that is a problem that we have in our system, and something needs to be addressed.
That's because, basically the top sports pay for pretty much everything else in the college. So you're not going to mess with the moneymaker.
Absolutely.
And I think we had some statistics that kind of support that from the National Football League about the statistics of Black to white players and coaches there. Ricky, what were those?
Yeah, so based off of the National Football League, the highest grossing sports league in the United States, Blacks made up 70% of the players in 2018, while whites occupied more than 70% of the coaching positions and nearly 100% of top executive positions. Blacks then are effectively relegated to being paid labor. In sociology, we call this a reinforcing condition because it serves to perpetuate the status quo. Blacks, especially Black males, are taught to see themselves only as athletes. Black neighborhoods emphasize sports as the path to respect and upward mobility. For me, and this is a quote directly from the article, for me, despite having access to a range of positive same-race role models outside of sports, I still had to overcome the racist socialization that told me my primary worth in life as a Black male was being an athlete. So I'm going to pose this question to Gary first, and then I'll have the rest of you just do a very quick weigh in because we're at the end of the hour. Do you feel that it is intentional that 70% of the players are Black and 70% of the coaches are white, 100% top executives?
Okay, so first of all, I heard you saying something about athletes have, Black athletes paid, like they're paid labor in the NFL. I'll tell you what, I don't care what color skin you are. If you could be call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, man, but to get those checks, you can call me anything you want.
I like that, Gary.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You call me anything you want because, when you're an athlete, man, they just, especially professional, it isn't about how smart you are. It isn't about what you're doing in the community. It isn't about anything else. And I don't know if I don't know if it should be about anything else. It's about playing the game to, being the best player. Now, of course, it's more than just being the best player. There needs to be this. It's more like a team. There are some other aspects, that help you be a part of that team. You could be an amazing athlete and still not be a good fit for that team. But hey, 70%, they're getting the best. I mean, really what it comes down to is they're like, I mean, I wish everybody had a uniform where you couldn't see white or black. And then you put them through and you say, hey, I want that number 41. I don't want that number 9. And you don't know who's who, but you see the way they play. And that's the way that works. Now, as far as coaching, I can't talk about that. I mean, I'm not a coach. I've been a youth football coach. So I don't know why. I mean, I know there's some guys for the Bucks, couple good coordinators, and I think they were saying something about they should be looked at as a head coach. And yeah, guess what? I think everybody should have the opportunity to, put out their best, like whether it's playing on the game, playing for the team, or if it's coaching or for its ownership. I mean, there's plenty of black people. Michael Jordan, he owns the NBA team. Why he could own an NFL team, I mean, there's other Oprah Winfrey, she got a lot of money. She could maybe, I don't know how that works. I don't make that kind of money, but.
Well, Gary, let me weigh in on this for a second, because we've only got like 2 minutes left. I think we need another show to talk about this, because we're just getting into this. Those are some high numbers, Gary. 70% black athletes, 70% white coaches, and then 100% executive coaches. So, maybe that's another show. You can check your game and look at some of that. But I think that's another topic that deserves a little bit more thought than just 2 minutes, because I know Joel can weigh in on this and Ricky can weigh in on this. There's just a lot to unpack here on that and the why. But you made a good point, Gary, that there again, play to win. It's all about playing to win. Who's going to be most effective? But still, the question begs, and the question is still on the table about the black male in athletics transitioning into or being considered for their academic skills and being grown and harvested that way. So they have something to hang their hat on. You mentioned a lot of CEOs, and they're out there. But I think we've got to kind of wrap this up today and revisit this next week, because we've had a very good, uncomfortable conversation, opened up our eyes and our minds. I know it opened up a lot for me. And did anybody have a final statement before I wrap this? Everybody good?
Well, this is a great topic. Yeah, I hope we are able to continue this next week. I do feel that is it intentional to a degree? Yeah, but I also I think people got to realize that the NFL is a very small fraternity that gets a lot of scrutiny, that makes a lot of money. And I think someone said that the numbers of the NFL, it's only like 5,000 people that has been in the NFL, and there's like 8 billion people in the world, so it's a very small sample size of something like, that's very niche. And so not everybody has the opportunity to get in there, because it's only so many jobs you can dole out anyways. But there is some intention. There is some of that. I agree, but it's, it is what it is.
Well, yeah, we definitely have to unpack that. And we want to thank our guest, Gary Rogers, here from the Canadian Football League. Thank you so much, retired Ricky Burney, author and transformational life coach, Joel Holtz, creative director. We've had a very good show. I think we got our work cut out for us for next week's show. Now we kind of got an edge on the topic, do our research and our homework. We want to thank our guests and viewers, everyone, for tuning in to Uncomfortable Conversation. This has definitely been one. We've got a lot more to talk about, and we will see you next week. We want to thank get some accolades here. Our show's executive producer, Daryl A. Johnson, is our producer. Alan Chafin is our engineer. They put this together for us each week. We always want to recognize them. So with that being said, we'll see you guys next week.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.